what I hope will be the text of the third chapter of the book I'm trying to write verbally, a book about marriage and the creative management of marriages so that marriages can be vital and enduring. Today, my topic is conflict resolution. And I will see if I can spin some things that might be helpful to those who wind up listening to this or who read a book that finally eventuates. And maybe some things even for some of my colleagues who have to deal with problematic couples. Uh, I'm laughing already. One of the ubiquitous and absolutely certain principles of human life is that if you get people together, there will be conflict. Uh, when it comes to marriage, I think I've laid out that there are certain myths that we get lost in. One is that there's some perfect other. If you meet that perfect other, then things will always flow graciously, sweetly, kindly, and without turbulence. And you will have a really wonderfully energizing and sustaining ongoing relationship that stretches out into infinity. That is a terrible myth. That does not exist. Any collective of people is full of conflict. There is no way to avoid it. That has to do with family relationships. It has to do with couples relationships. In the workplace, there are conflicts. In friendships, there are conflicts. There are just no human relationships that don't have conflict. The problem is that we are not synced with each other perfectly. Each of us is unique, like a snowflake, and we have certain aspirations, certain hopes, certain desires, certain needs, certain aversions, certain hatreds, and those are not perfectly aligned to anybody else's. So if we try to make a life with another human being and invite them into a partnership with us, there are going to be times when we're at cross purposes. One person is going to want something different than the other person wants. One person is going to misconstrue what the meaning of another person's behavior is. And we do make lots of mistakes in attribution of what the messages are we exchange with each other. All I can promise is there are going to be many nodes of turbulence in every relationship, even effective and worthwhile ones. And as a matter of fact, if you want to build an effective and worthwhile relationship, you have to make plans for dealing with the turbulence in ways that are not disruptive and do not destroy the quality of the relationship. And that's quite a challenge. All right, I'll take a breath at that point. Uh, Let me back into this in another way. Conflict resolution is a challenge that all of us confront. Each one of us has a sacred responsibility to learn to manage the conflicts we have with others in a respectful, thoughtful, and hopefully effective fashion. Not many people honor the assignment I would like to give all of us. In truth, conflict resolution strategies are developmentally organized. And what do I mean by that? Conflict resolution strategies are developmentally organized. Well, when we're very, very small, we have only one conflict resolution strategy. When we're in distress as a small organism, we just flood over with feeling states. We scream, we carry on, we kick, we spit. We're crying out for attention of some kind. What we really need is some kind of soothing, and we hope that in good, I'm sorry, I'll back up a little. And in reasonable relationships, somebody comes to soothe us and calm us down. But if we don't get soothed, we continue to get more and more agitated, and if we're capable of it, we get more and more destruction. We start throwing things, we start biting things, we start trying to trash things, kick at things, and do anything to demonstrate how distressed we are. So the first stage of conflict resolution, I would just simply label as temper tantrums. That is the first stage. That's the best we can do when we're feeling frustrated and deprived and unhappy with how the flow of our life is going. Now, what's really terrible is that probably 2/3 of the human race has never progressed beyond that. That is the conflict resolution strategy of 2/3 of all living human beings. They scream at each other, they punch each other, they hurt each other, they make wars on each other. We're going through a good one right now. They will try and kill each other if they can kill each other. They are just pouring out distress and a desire to stop the pain in whatever way possible, even if it involves biting, kicking, killing other human beings. And Putin is very good at that very right now. He's throwing a huge temper tantrum in Ukrainian. He can't have what he wants, so he's going to just kill Ukrainians and destroy the whole place. He's a typical infant knocking over the tower of blocks that he can't control, and he can't stack properly, and they don't lie the way he wants. So he'll just kick them over and kick them all over the place and destroy them all. And if there are space aliens who visit us, they just shake their heads at us and wonder about how primitive we are and how incapable we are of moving beyond the infancy of our existences and move towards anything better and trying to work things out and understand how to manage conflict. So I hope individual couples I work with, and I hope those who are going to form coupledom do better than Putin is doing with Ukraine right now. Fortunately, there are at least maybe 2/3 of us, hopefully, at least in the Western, more evolved cultures, there are 2/3 of us that move beyond just throwing temper tantrums. And I'll stop again to say, look at how much spousal abuse there are and child abuse there is. This is all based on not being able to manage conflict and simply throwing tantrums and trying to destroy, tear apart, ruin the personhood of whoever is frustrating us. And so much of it is still going on even in our culture. But the mainstream of our culture is evolving. And for most of us, stage 2 of conflict resolution does appear. It appears somewhere around 5 or 6 years of age. I think we have learned to use words. That's a common thing we try to teach our frustrated children. Tell me in words what's wrong. And we teach them that they can talk about what things are wrong better and they can use words, and maybe we can figure out ways for soothing to go on or problem resolution to take place. And that begins to become preeminent or about the time that the kids go out to elementary school. And now a kind of lovely yearning sets in. Young people want to be in an intelligible and coherent world. They want the world to be organized by some principles, because if they can learn the principles and figure out what is right and what is wrong, they can avoid a lot of conflict, and they have a rhetoric and a mechanism for settling disputes. If there's a dispute, if two people are angry with each other, all you have to do is discover which one's right and which one's wrong. And then if the wrong person just stops the wrong behavior, then everything is now solved and peace comes and there's resolution. So starting with elementary school age, young people want there to be fairness, and wants there to be principles of right and wrong. So disputes, differences, hurts, uh, uh, glitches of all kinds, terrible moments of all kinds can be resolved by reference to a table of what's right and what's wrong. All that has to happen is there be discovery of who was the correct person and who was the incorrect person. The incorrect person should make amends for the trouble that the incorrect person has caused, and then life can go on peacefully and fruitfully again. Unfortunately, that model does not work. Uh, there are endless disputes by people who are having difficulty with each other, grown-ups or children, couples, parents and children, about who's right and who's wrong. And unfortunately, I think the default is what feels comfortable for me, what I would like, and what I think would be helpful in terms of my getting on with my life properly, and or what are the values of the culture I've been taught to believe in. All those things help me define what is right. And if the person I'm in trouble with does not see that, then they're wrong. They need to bow to my sense of what's right because I have the correct sense of what's right, and their sense of what might be right is very erroneous. So now the battles are all about who is right and who is wrong. And I have had endless number of couples in my consulting room where that battle goes on and on and on. And it can be exhausting. What you want, what you need, what you tell me should happen is just not right. I'll tell you what's right, and you need to listen to me because I know what's right and you don't know what's right is. The battles over what's right go nowhere in the long run. The outcome is always tragic. Uh, Usually, when there are battles that endure and repeat over and over again about what is right and what is wrong, one person gets burned out and usually gives up. They have tried to advance their own point of view. They've tried to convince the other that the other is wrongheaded and their view of things is the correct one. And that's gone nowhere. And they have no more arguments they can muster, no more energy for continuing to dispute this over and over and over again. So usually they just surrender and they apologize. And they say, I'm sorry. All right, you're right. I'll listen to you. We'll do things your way. You get to decide and we'll do what you're asking for. But in their heart of hearts, they know this isn't correct. They know that the other person, quote, isn't right, close quote. So they're surrendering with bitterness. They feel very bitter about giving up. They even may feel tragic that they've given in when they know they shouldn't have given in, and they've just given in to make peace, and it isn't right for them to give in. That leads to no good outcome. It leads to increasing bitterness between the two members of a couple. And if that goes on long enough, if that's the conflict resolution strategy, then both of them wind up bitter and detached from each other and contemptuous of the other and in terrible trouble. What they will have is a Cold War. They'll still be living together, maybe for the sake of the children, but the vitality goes out of their relationship with each other. They feel bullied into surrendering, and it isn't a good, honorable, and loving relationship between the two of them anymore. Endless battles about who's right leads to a destruction of the vitality of the relationship. And okay, take a breath again. Unfortunately, only about a third of the population arrives at something better, reaches what I consider a more evolved sense of a more evolved consciousness of good sense about the management of conflict. It's a hard sell. It's a hard thing to come to peace with. It is to come to peace with this strange concept. Nobody is right and nobody is wrong. There's probably no correct way to live and no correct way to do anything. What's happening is that two people with different textures, different yearnings, different needs, different thresholds of pain are come together and are trying to make a life together. Neither one of them is correct. They're just idiosyncratic. They have to make room for their idiosyncrasies if they're to make a life together. They have to even cherish their idiosyncrasies. What a strange concept. And when they're in trouble with each other, they have to search for a resolution that will try and give each of them some of what they want, but may not give both of them all of what either of them wants. They are in a compromise. That's probably the best they can do, given the differences between the two of them. And I am telling you, there are very few couples I've seen over the years of my career that are that evolved and able to think that way and act in those kinds of kindnesses towards the differences between the two of them and give up asserting that what they believe in is correct and move on to into the third stage. So let's see, where do I want to go from this? That's the general principle. Now there are some subtextual things I want to talk about. Part of arriving at the destination of being able to negotiate conflicts by honoring the differences between the pair is what I've called allowing the partner to influence oneself. Uh, that's a hard one for most of us. There's been research, empirical research on the success of marriages over many years. And one of the most significant things that predicts success is if each of them has a partner who they can allow to themselves to be influenced by. That means the idiosyncrasies and the strangenesses and the personal needs of the other have to become somewhat precious to the person who's living with them. And they have to be influenced enough to give up what they want to create as the perfect life for themselves so that they can allow themselves to be influenced to provide for the partner many things the partner may need that make no sense to the first person at all, or may even seem silly or unimportant. Since they're very important to the other, I will be influenced. Uh, I'll give examples of these things soon. So being influenceable by a partner is a very important part of conflict resolution. Okay. Now I will give some case illustrations. Here is a case of a couple I worked with many years ago. They were a divorced couple who had remarried and were in the process of creating a step family. That in itself is an old challenge that deserves a book of its own, how to create a step family without everybody damaging each other. At any rate, they were attempting to create a step family. And as is the case, the husband was feeling very oriented towards his children. He felt bad that he was the one that broke up the marriage. Whenever he had a chance to be with his children, he wanted to do Christmas for them, to give them wonderful experiences, to try to make up to them for the hurt he had created for them by tearing the family apart, and to be very, very, very attentive to them. So one day, he was my client. One day he came in and said he had had a horrible fight with his new wife. His children had been over. He had two children. They were visiting. He was having his conversation with his wife in the living room, and his daughter was with his son in the other room, and they were playing with something. I think his daughter was 4 at the time, and his daughter broke a toy and came running into the living room and said to her father, "Oh, my toy is broken. Come fix it, Daddy." And he said to his partner, his new partner, "I'm going to fix her toy. I'll be right back." And he left, he went and fixed the toy as best he could, and he came back. And his wife said to him, he reported to me with some hurt and anger. She said to me, "I shouldn't have left." So he said, "What do you mean I shouldn't have left?" And she said, "That's you are not raising your daughter properly." He said, "What do you mean I'm not raising my daughter properly?" And she said, "She's 4 now. She has to learn about taking turns, and she has to learn about what are the privileges of grown-ups and what are the privileges of children. This is a time of great learning for her. And you're acting like you're her servant, and whatever she wants, you're going to give her whenever she wants it. You'll stop whatever you're doing and just pay attention to her. Here's what I wish you would have done," she said. "I wish you had said, so and so and I are having a conversation right now. We're almost done. It's going to take 2 or 3 minutes till we finish. Please wait. I'll be there in 2 or 3 minutes and I'll come and fix your toy." Just ask her to wait for a little while. She needs to learn that she's not the center of the universe, and she can wait a little bit before you come to soothe her immediately. It's part of her getting older and be taking better care of her own life. And my client said he got very angry. He started yelling at her. Is this what I'm getting into by being with you? You're going to try and take me away from my children. I want to tell you that he said, he reported to me proudly, I told her my children come first and she shouldn't interfere in how I'm raising my children. I know what I'm doing with my children. And then the strangest thing happened, he said. She didn't yell, she didn't protest, she didn't do anything. She just got tears in her eyes. I said, oh, she started crying? And he said, yeah, she started crying. I said, what was she crying about? He said, well, I asked her, what are you crying about? She said, are you done? I said, what do you mean, am I done? She said, have you said everything to me you want to say about how terrible I am and how intrusive I am and how about I'm trying to take your children away? Oh, and you left out something you've told me in the past. She said to him, you had a very intrusive mother, and am I like your intrusive mother who's going to try and take control of your life and tell you how you're supposed to live your life? You've told me that on other occasions. You forgot that one. You want to add that before we go on with the conversation. And he felt ashamed of himself. He said, no, I don't need to add that. And she was silent for a second and she said, I'll tell you what I'm crying about. I meant what I said. I don't think you're a good parent. You need to think about helping your child to become more mature, more patient, and more sharing. I wasn't asking you to make a huge change in your life with her. I'm not controlling you. I have no capacity to control you. I don't have a gun to your head. I can tell you what I think is right and what I'd like. You're still free to do whatever the hell you please, which you did do. And I still don't agree with what you did. But I want to remind you of something. You have started to make a life with me. Your daughter is here only part-time, and she's going to be passing through our life together. I love your daughter. I'll be kind to her. I'll embrace her as if she were my own child, but I want the right to try and help you raise her in a way that I feel comfortable with too, not just the way you want to raise her. And I don't think you did the right thing. And I am the one who's going to be here. She's going to grow up. She's going to leave home. You're going to lose her partly or fully for a period of time, and she's not going to be your closest connection in the world, even if you'd like to make her that now. I am the one who's going to be here always, and I will be with you while you get old. And if God forbid you need a lot of caretaking, I'll make sure you get good caretaking, and I'll keep you company while you die, even if I tear my guts out and I have to do that. I am here for you and with you. And that's what I was crying about. And my client said, that really shut me up and gave me a lot to think about. And I said, you have a very, very good partner you have found. She's trying to arrive with you at a strategy for raising your children. And I happen to agree with some of what she says with you. Your daughter is not the center of your universe. She needs to be your child and be a child you're raising, and she's going to help you. So please keep the conversation going about what the solution is. What is the way for her to be a step parent, and what is the way for you to be a parent to your own children that you need, and what does she need, and where is their meeting ground between the two of you? So that's my attempt to move them into the third stage of conflict resolution, into honoring and respecting the needs, perspectives, and desires of the other person, and finding some common ground that gives both of them some of what they want without giving either of them anything that's the total victory for themselves. Another client, uh, he had recently moved in with his girlfriend. It was another he. And he was really happy. He had found somebody after being in the singles world for some period of time. And he was looking forward to having a life with her and was excited that they were now going to live together. And if it went well, they were going to get married in a year or so. And he was coming home for a shopping expedition. They were going to celebrate their moving in together by having a meal that they were going to cook together. I think it was bouillabaisse and champagne they were going to have. And he was working a little bit later than her. So he promised he was going to stop at Gelson's on the way home and pick up the ingredients so that they could do the cooking for each other when he got home. And they would have a candlelight dinner and enjoy the meal and have the champagne. It would be wonderful. So he was having a glorious time shopping in Gelson's, getting delicious things. And he ran into an old friend. He said, "Mike, how are you?" And Mike said, "I'm fine. It's nice seeing you." And he said to Mike, "What are you doing here? You live in Simi Valley. What the hell are you doing in Encino?" And Mike said, "Well, I had to call in a client here, and I thought I would stop at Gelson's on the way back to Simi Valley. So it's nice. We ran into each other. What are you doing here?" "Oh, you don't know. I've fallen in love. I moved in with my girlfriend, and I'm ready to get out of the singles world. I'm glad to put it behind me. I'm sorry I haven't been very available to you for the last many months. I've been busy trying to date, find somebody. Now I can be an ordinary person again. I'd love for my new girlfriend and you and your wife to get together. I know we don't see each other very often, but I think you would like her, and I know she would like your wife. Is there a time we could get together soon?" And then my client said, "Oh, I just thought of something. We're free all this weekend. My kids are with their mother, and her kids are with their father. We have the whole weekend free. We're going to have a wonderful dinner tonight. But how about tomorrow night? Are you guys free? Could we go to a movie or go out to dinner or something? I want you to meet my new girlfriend." And his friend said, I think we're free. Let's plan on it. If you don't hear from me, we'll get together and get in touch with me late in the day tomorrow, and we'll figure out whether we're going to a movie, whether we're going to dinner, whether we'll invite you guys over and you can come to Simi Valley and have dinner with us." So my client was very happy going home. And he was telling me this story. He got home and he told his girlfriend, she said something like, "Oh, you look like you're having a wonderful afternoon. I'm so eager too. Let's start cooking." And he said, "Oh, you won't believe what happened to me today. I ran into Mike at Gelson's. I've told you about him. He's a nice acquaintance of mine I haven't seen for maybe close to a year. I want to get together with him again. I told him if he was free tomorrow that you and I and he and his wife would get together and have an evening together." And my girlfriend said, "You said what?" And I said we were going to get together tomorrow with Mike and his wife. And she said to me, "You didn't ask me." And oh, did that hurt? Well, I got so angry with her. I said, "What do you mean I didn't ask you? You my manager? Do you control me? Do I have to ask you? Do I need your permission to make an appointment with somebody? What the hell are you doing? Is this what I'm getting into? Are you do I have to run everything by you and you have to pass judgment on it before I can do anything?" And she said, "Well, in some way, yes. You have to run everything by me and I have to pass judgment on it." So what the fuck is that? And my girlfriend said to me, "Well, I thought we were building a partnership. Now look, I don't think you would like this the other way around. You made a decision. You made a commitment about what I was doing tomorrow evening. And I didn't even have a voice. I wasn't even consulted with. You didn't even ask me. Is that a commitment I would enjoy? Is this a worthwhile commitment for me? Am I interested in such a commitment? I don't like when somebody gives away my freedom of choice. Now, you had a right to ignore what I was going to say to you, but it's just unconscionable to me that I don't even get a voice. I can't even say what would feel better or worse to me because you're going to make all the decisions. And I can't let you make all the decisions in this relationship. I want at least to decide which decisions you get to make, which decisions I get to make, and we have a conversation about it. You just don't get to decide everything. And he had to agree that his woman had some wisdom. And he apologized to her. And then she really did it to him. She said to him, uh, you didn't know this, but I was planning a surprise for you. I know you like going to the opera, and Betsy, my friend, has season opera tickets, and they can't go to the opera tomorrow evening. And I was thinking I would ask her for the opera tickets, and I was going to ask you, would you like going to the opera tomorrow night? Because I can get us free opera tickets, but you took that away from me. You made a date for me to go to Simi Valley to see some other people. I couldn't even offer you the opera tickets. You preempted me. He said, no, 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 I can change the appointment. We can go some other time. She said, no, that's another principle that's important to me. If there's a commitment that's been made to do something, unless I get sick or there's some good reason for me not to honor it, I will honor it. So if it's important to you to go and this has been committed, I will go. I just want a commitment from you. You will never do that again to me. And that's where they wound up. He thought she had made a very, very good point and stopped arguing with her. Now, as I tell these stories, I'm relating stories of things that were managed fairly well. Unfortunately, in the consulting room and in stories I hear about life, things go off the rail. People start getting very strident with each other. They start talking over each other, and they cannot manage the distress that's going on between the two of them without disrupting it and continuing to assert the same thing over and over again stupidly. I know in the consulting room what I do. I have a talking tennis ball, and if I have to, I will prevent people from interrupting each other and talking over each other. I give the ball to one person and tell them to talk about anything they want to until they're finished and have nothing further to say, and the other person has to just shut up and listen until the first person is done. So frequently, I have to tell couples who are struggling home to just have a talking ball and not interrupt each other at all. Other times, I tell them to stop what they're doing and just make an agreement. They're not going to proceed any further to try to solve the problem until they can get in and see me and do it in my presence. So I can mediate what's going on between the two of them. But they're just going to make trouble and they're going to get out of control and make each other increasingly miserable unnecessarily. So there are several principles involved in what I'm talking about now. One is the principle of honoring differences and knowing there's no correct solution to anything. And the other is to managing the dispute that needs to be resolved. How can the dispute be managed without disruption and in a thoughtful and reasonable fashion? So I will now go to another topic. It's called being diplomatic. This is also a requirement of managing a relationship with a partner successfully. We have to learn diplomacy. The challenge is if things hurt and are troublesome, we need to talk about them. We have to bring them up and start the conversation in a way that will not jar or tear at the sensibilities of our partner. So we have to learn to bring up problematic, difficult things diplomatically. And that's a whole other skill set. I will brag about myself. My third illustration of something is from my own life recently. After 50 years of marriage, I had the following experience with my wife. And it was about what I'm doing today. One of my episodes that I had posted on my YouTube channel, I really liked a lot. And often my wife and I, is the last thing we do before we retire for the night, is watch something diverting on television, some YouTube presentation, some old movie, something that would be relaxing and delightful for us. And on that particular evening, I was filled with pride. I thought what I talked about was very interesting and worthwhile. And I said to Hermine, Ramin, would you mind? I have a YouTube channel I put up today. It was a Friday evening, as a matter of fact. I had a YouTube channel presentation I put up today that I thought was really very apt and nice. I've watched a lot of them, and some of them seem clunky and stupid, but this one felt a little bit precious to me. I'd like to show it to you if you'd watch it before I went to bed. She said, "Fine, I'll watch that." And so she was moving back and forth in the bathroom and dressing and undressing. And she said, "Tune it up so I can hear it. Is it okay if I don't see all of it? Because I know what you look like. I can hear what you're talking about." I said, "Well, that's fine." So part of the time she was there in the room seeing what I was saying. Part of the time she was in the adjoining bathroom listening to what I was saying. Then finally she said, "Okay, I'm ready for bed now. Is there more you want me to hear?" And I said, "No, I've given you a new slice of that. I'm ready to turn it off. That's fine." And so I turned it off and she said, "Good, I'll get ready. I'll get under the covers now." And I said, "What did you think?" So she said, "Well, she brought up some point. I think you should have said this instead." And she told me a correction she was making of what I could have done at some other point that was more powerful. And then she brought up something else and she said, "I don't think that was clear to your viewers. I think you needed to take a few more minutes to talk about that to your viewers." Those were the main things I thought about when I was watching, and I felt devastated. What I heard when I thought I would hear some kindness, some appreciation, I heard two corrections she thought she needed to make. And they were deeply wounding to me on that evening. And I said, "Well, thank you. Let's go to sleep." And I knew I was in trouble and I needed to talk to her about something. But I also knew that was a ridiculous time. I could tell that she was tired and irritable to begin with. And maybe I shouldn't have even have asked her for anything when she was already drained and depleted and had probably nothing much to give me. And I was also troubled. I was afraid I was going to just start yelling at her. And I decided, okay, I'm just going to go to sleep. Forget about this. I was awakened by myself at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I was brooding by what I felt was her dismissal of me, her unkindness. I was attributing bad character traits to her, and I was feeling hurt and wounded by her. And she didn't appreciate me. And so often, I wish she would be more lavish with any kind of affection she shows me. I was demonizing her in my sleeplessness, and I said, "No, no, no, no. Those are not ways to talk to her. I need to talk to her, but those things I'm thinking about are not a good beginning for how to talk to her." And I went back to sleep. The next day, I again was going back and forth, listening only partly to my clients, figuring I'd talk to her in the evening when we had some free time. But what was I going to say? And then it came to me, and I was at peace. And what did I say to her? After dinner, I said, "You got a few minutes? I would like to talk to you about something that happened yesterday." And she said, "Am I in trouble?" And I said, "No, I'm in trouble," I said to her. Uh, we had an experience yesterday that we shared. I showed you my YouTube channel presentation. You gave me two corrections of what you thought might have been better if I had included those things in the presentation I had made. I felt deeply wounded, and I want to apologize to you. I am an empty pit," I said to her. "I had parents who were detached. They didn't know how to appreciate me, to comfort me. I was raised in a generation that believed you don't compliment your children because you're going to spoil them. You correct them when they're wrong and you send them on their way. And that's how children should be raised. I used to creep to the stairway head in my Dr. Denton pajamas when company was there, hoping I would hear my parents say some word of appreciation about why they were glad I was their child. Once in a while, I heard them brag about something about me to their friends. Most of the time, they ignored me. I got much more comfort and soothing from our housekeeper than I ever did from either of my parents. They never came to a PTA meeting, to any open house with any of my teachers. I played the clarinet. They never came to any of my recitals. Once in a while, I was in a school play. They never came to a school play. Nothing. They would look at my report cards and sign them without, they never even knew what I was taking in school. They didn't seem interested. And I have an endless yearning that I would be appreciated, fussed over, treated as if I was special and important. And I can never get enough. And I am sorry. I got very hurt and angry with you the other night and brooded about all that in the middle of the night. And you don't deserve that. I am an empty well, and no matter what you did, you will never fill it. And I stopped at that point. And bless her, she thanked me for telling her, and she really said, "I'm sorry you suffered. I didn't mean to make you suffer that night, and I was really irritable. I did the best I can, and I failed you." And she stopped at that point, and we went on. And I felt like I had raised the issue. I had expressed myself. I had blamed her for nothing and took full responsibility for being the person who was upset. I never blamed her in any way for failing me. Of course, she didn't fulfill my hopes and dreams and expectations, but it's unreasonable to tag her with the responsibility always to fulfill my hopes, my dreams, and my expectations. Nobody will ever do that for me. And wonder of wonders, before we went to bed that night, she said, "Well, I want to say something to you. I've been thinking about what you said to me." I'm going to cry. She said, "In some ways, I'm not a good partner to you." She said, "I have my own way of trying to show that I care about you. I love taking care of you. I love thinking about what to cook for you that will please you. I've only learned that I love you through actions. I worry about your health. I'm always there. If there's anything I have to do by way of a health regimen, I'm on it in a second. I'm there always when you have to talk to doctors if anything seems threatening. I love keeping a tidy house for you. I love decorating a house that'll be pleasant for you to live in. I love doing things that provide you with a more comfortable life. And I apologize. I am not good with words. I've never been good with using, nobody in my family ever said to each other that they loved each other. Nobody in my family passed compliments to each other. I never learned the skills of how to do that. I know I do it when it's a birthday card or a anniversary card. I managed to find words to write some words to you, and I know you like those words. But in ordinary back-to-back daily living, I forget to give you words, and I apologize to you. I'll try to get better at giving you words. Oh my God. And I'd like to present that as a model of how people who are married need to treat each other. And the kind of thing I help my clients learn how to do. Uh, uh, I think I'm through for today.
I have a story that's fresh off the presses.
Good
As you know, we're staying in a hotel,
for you. Yes, I do
and
know.
yesterday morning I got up and I took a walk and I threw out 2 bags of garbage that we've been accumulating, and I used some of the I guess Gelson's bags that we had saved, both my wife and myself. And I thought, well, gee, I think I was the hero for, throwing out the garbage before anyone got up.
Yes.
You know, and then I put some more bags in, and my wife got up and she said, "Why did you use those bags?" I was saving those bags. And I said, "Well, I had to use something because we were, you know, had to throw out the trash and we were accumulating the trash here in the hotel." And so she was very upset
Oh, yes,
that
that's a
that
wonderful example you brought up.
that
Go
Mhm.
that
ahead.
well that I used the bags.
Yeah,
And so I said, "Well, you know, else am I supposed to use?" She said, "Well, you didn't ask me,
there we go.
and you didn't ask me if I could use the bags." And I said, "Well, you know, I'm a independent thinker, and I you know
You
take
think.
I take initiative, and you know, kind of like, and I'm creative." And so it's like I thought I was doing a great favor, and she said, "No, you know, you got to ask first."
Yeah,
And these precious bags that we had in another bag, and we're you know, it's like, well, I couldn't you know, it's like I had you know, committed a sin.
you had.
Yeah, and
You had
so
done something that affected her
so we
without running it by her first.
we
Yeah.
went round and round, and finally I said, Okay, all right, well, I'll, you know, I'll ask you next time." And I think later on in the day I asked, Can I use the bag?" And she said, "Yes, you can use the bags." And she said, "Well, but by the way, you know, get some more bags from the housekeeping department, and we'll have plenty of bags." So I thought, okay, well, fine, and I guess I can do that. So I went to sleep. The next morning, or I had a dream before I woke up, and I dreamt I was in a big long line with my wife, and in the line were several women that I had known as friends that I got along with very well.
Yes.
And so I woke up and I said to I had this dream about, you know,
Oh,
these women that were friends of mine, and that, you know, that I got along with very well. We, you know, one friend I was carpooled when I was in
yes.
graduate school, and, you know, other
And
friends. And she said,
and
"Well, why'd you?"
those women don't nag you about bags.
And so she said, well, why did you dream that?" And I
That's why,
said,
because they didn't nag you about bags.
and so I said, "I don't know. I just dreamed that." So the day went by, and you know, I saw the housekeeper in the hall, and of course I asked for 3 more bags,
Mhm.
and that, I think that's the end of the story.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the theme is you both were able to kind of take responsibility for your feelings, you know, and
Hmm.
not
Yeah.
overreact and see your partner as the problem, you know.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's powerful.
Well, I can take your wife to task a little bit. Uh, she may have said to you, you need to ask, but she didn't honor that you had the right to proceed anyhow if she made her input and you were still convinced that you needed to do something different than she was counseling you. She certainly deserves a voice. Whether that means she gets to make the final decision is a different issue that needs to be debated.
I think she was just asking that she was just requesting to be asked.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, that it didn't matter in some ways if I said, well, you know, if I insisted on using the bags, but she wanted to be asked.
And that leads me to a wonderful thing I talk about frequently, and I don't remember if I've lectured about this before. That's my analogy between human partnerships and Alaskan Husky dogs. We are all Alaskan Husky dogs, and in the state of nature, we live in a pack. That's our family of origin. And we can leave the pack, come back to the pack, go down to the edge of the ocean and bark at the seals if we feel like it, go urinate on a bush whenever we need to urinate, lie on our back and look at the clouds, and then rejoin the pack again. It's very different to make a decision to be a fellow pack animal in the traces of a sledge that we're dragging across the snow fields. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to turn left and go bark at those dogs. You start strangling the other the other dog if you're doing that. You have to say, I'm going to turn left here, and the other dog can say, no, don't turn left here. This is not a good place to play. We have to go another mile before we stop and play. And everything has to be talked about and negotiated, because everything you do has an effect on the person you're living with. And not living in our own separateness, in our own stream of consciousness, and acting as if we are independent and autonomous, we have to give up, because we're no longer independent and autonomous. We are
Right.
in a flow with another human life.
Yes.
And when children come, they're even more human lives that we have to be in a flow with. So you were just automatically doing what seemed reasonable to you. Oh, here's a problem. I know the solution. I'll solve it.
Yeah, next time just say, okay, great, I'll just let this place pile up with garbage. I think that'll go over just fine. Yeah.
I thought of that.
See, that comes out. There's wisdom right there. See, eventually you learn not to fully put your shoe in your mouth. You learn to just kind of chew on the sole of the shoe a little bit.
It's wonderful to have a partner and to learn to rise to the endless challenges that come up. I actually feel very proud of how I managed my distress about having not been given compliments. Strangely enough, I think learning to do that and managing it in the way I did is a much better outcome than if she had just simply said some words of appreciation to me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'd learned how to avoid stupidity and cruelty and insensitivity, and to talk about precious truths, and to be intimate with her.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's also beautiful that, we're talking about a 50-year marriage here. It illustrates that it's never done.
No, it's never done. It's a work in progress all the time. Okay, guys, it's time for me to say goodbye today. What am I
Okay.
going to talk about next week? Oh, managing differences in values and beliefs. That's a good one.
Okay. We'll have more stories.
Yes, we will.
And how to deal with communal garbage. I think that should be a topic.
Oh, put up as the descriptor, Chapter 3, conflict resolution.
Mhm.
All right, got it.
Thank
Okay.
you. Bye.
Bye, guys.
See you all.